welcome to another installment of Amazing Discoveries. I'm your host, Scott Boeser, and the question of the day is this. But it's actually a misconception. But what's a misconception? Well, it's a mistaken idea. So the mistaken idea for today's segment is that all the major world religions actually believe and worship the same God, with a slightly different perspective. Is it true? Let's have a look at the evidence. You see, if you spoke to a Muslim believer or a Jewish person, asked them if they believe in the same God or the same God as a Christian believer, they themselves would tell you, certainly not. Many people think that if all the believers of world religions would just agree they're believing and worshiping the same God, we would have less violence, hatred, and strife in our world today. Well, let me tell you, folks, I'm all for less violence and strife in our world today. But what I cannot agree with is that we all believe in the same God. Why not? Good question. Because the evidence simply doesn't lead us to that conclusion. You see, this is a pursuit of truth. We want to know what the reality is. We don't want to believe in fairy tales. So if you ask a Muslim person, how do you know God exists or who this God is? He would say, because God appeared to our prophet Muhammad and instructed him to write the verses of the Quran. If you ask a Jewish person the same question, he would say, because God appeared to our prophet Moses and instructed him to write the first 5 books of the Old Testament. But if you ask a Christian, how do you know God exists or who this God is? Well, the answer is far, far different. See, a Christian would say, we know that God exists or we know who this God is because he actually stepped out of that supernatural realm where no space or time exists and inserted himself right into human history in the form of a baby. That's an audacious claim, and we can investigate the claims of that with evidence in a future Amazing Discoveries session. But for now, the point is that we simply cannot embrace this idea that all the major world religions actually believe in the same God, because the evidence just doesn't lead us to that conclusion. I want to read you something from the book of 1 John in the New Testament. This is actually the John who was a companion of Jesus while he walked on this planet. John says this, "From the very first day we were there, taking it all in. We heard him with our own ears. We saw him with our own eyes. We verified him with our own hands. The word of life appeared right before our eyes, and we saw it happen. And now we're telling you in the most sober way, what we witnessed was incredibly this. The infinite life of God himself took shape right before our eyes." Now that's amazing. Hey, thanks for joining us on Amazing Discoveries. I'm your host, Scott Boeser, and we'll see you next time.